Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. High-speed trains to the mainland resume service after a 3-year hiatus. Nepal has witnessed its worst air disaster after 64 people die in a plane crash. And Russia intensifies its offensive in Ukraine with a fresh wave of missile attacks. After 3 years of stoppage, high-speed trains between Hong Kong and the mainland started running again. But response was lukewarm, as only 6,500 passengers were recorded as of 6 p.m. Raymond Young reports.
After 1,081 days, the Express Rail Link finally welcomed back passengers at the West Kowloon terminus this morning. Apart from the East Rail Line, cross-border buses and ferries, northbound travelers can also make use of the $84 billion system, which was completed in 2018 but suspended in early 2020 because of COVID. The high-speed train promises a fast and punctual trip across the border, but not after passengers endure lengthy and complex boarding procedures. They must first scan their identity document at the automated gate, but this woman seemed to be stuck, even with a helper at her disposal. A fellow passenger ran into issues as well. It turned out he forgot to take off his mask for a face scan, and after doing so, he was finally let through. In line with mainland regulations, northbound passengers must carry proof of a negative PCR test conducted within 48 hours of departure. They were also reminded not to carry alcohol sanitizers on board, as the items are considered flammable. After all that, it was finally time to pass through immigration. First, the Hong Kong side, and then the mainland side, but not before submitting a health declaration. After filling in a form which is only available online, a QR code will be generated for verification. Under the co-location arrangement, passengers have to cross the border twice at the station, so they can be spared from another round of checks upon reaching the destination. After more baggage checks, ticket inspections, both manually and electronically at the gate, our crew finally reached the platform, a process which took 45 minutes, double the time needed for the actual journey to Shenzhen. While tickets were sold out, according to the booking website, there were plenty of empty seats on the first train at 7 a.m. Still, those on board couldn't hide their excitement. The train departed on schedule and reached Shenzhen North Station in less than 20 minutes. It was a thumbs-up experience for this group of travelers. Once at Shenzhen North, passengers can hop onto another train to virtually anywhere through China's fast railway network. Apart from Shenzhen, Hong Kongers can also travel to Guangzhou city center from West Kowloon for the first time. Lawmakers and MTR executives were on board the first ever departure to Guangzhou East Station. But with 3 stops in Shenzhen and 2 more in Dongguan, the journey took around 1 hour and 40 minutes, only marginally faster than a former through train from Hong Kong. But once you step off, find yourself in the heart of Guangzhou, surrounded by shopping malls and convention centers. 6 pairs of trains run between West Kowloon and Guangzhou East today, and frequencies could be bumped up depending on demand. Back at West Kowloon Station, the first batch of southbound passengers received a raucous welcome. Transport Chief Lam Sai-hung, Tourism Minister Kevin Yeung, and MTR Chairman Rex Ouyang were on hand to greet the arrivals and give out souvenirs. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
An MTR executive admitted a few southbound travelers couldn't board the train because they did not have a negative PCR result. He added tickets in the coming week are going fast.
We observed today almost most of the tickets are already sold. And the most popular day will be before the Chinese New Year. It's about 19 to 22. We saw quite a number of tickets already sold. So I encourage passengers to refer to our website and our mobile app to check the ticket availability before they come to our station.
Customs officials have seized a consignment of suspected oral COVID drugs worth $500,000 in street value. 2 people were arrested for importing the medicines without a license. Janice Lowe reports.
After analyzing intelligence information and risk factors, Customs conducted a spot check at the airport and intercepted a parcel shipped from India last Wednesday. Officers raised suspicions after the package declared as healthcare products passed through X-ray scans. Upon inspection, they found 250 boxes of suspected oral COVID medicine with an estimated market value of $330,000. Officers then traced the delivery to a post office in Tien Shui Wai, where they arrested a 40-year-old man who collected the package yesterday. Another 130 boxes of suspected COVID drugs worth $170,000 were seized from the man's residence nearby. The confiscated drugs are not registered in Hong Kong. The man and his 34-year-old wife were arrested for importing pharmaceutical products and medicines without a valid import license, as well as illegal possession of poison. The unemployed couple were released on bail while Customs continue their investigation. Inspector Hong Yan from the Crime Syndicate Investigation Bureau said the drugs would be sent to the government laboratory for tests.
有關藥物嘅功效啦、安全啦同埋質素咧，都係成疑嘅。
He reminded citizens that the efficacy, safety, and quality of unregistered drugs remain questionable and urged people not to purchase medicines from unknown sources. Hong did not rule out further arrests, adding that they will look into the origin of the drugs and how they would be distributed further. Janice Lowe, HKIBC.
The new director of Beijing's liaison office delivered his first Lunar New Year speech. In a video address, Zheng Yanxiong said Hong Kong has gradually returned to normality by overcoming the COVID pandemic, as well as hosting events such as the Financial Summit in November. He urged the city to unleash prosperity by actively participating in international exchanges. Zheng assured that the liaison office will continue to support the SAR government in the Year of the Rabbit. The Tourism Board is planning to spend $100 million in global publicity blitz to lure visitors back to Hong Kong. But the head of the body warned against expecting an instant recovery of the beleaguered sector.
When any markets in the world, when they reopen for their tourists to return, the biggest sort of challenges is to the capacity and also the lack of manpower. And particularly for the airlines, the airports, the hotels, the hospitality business. I think in the case of Hong Kong, we noticed that even for dining and the retail sectors, a lack of short of manpower. So I think ramping up that manpower and in order to give our visitors a quality experience, I think is very important.
Cheng also conceded that the traditional Chinese New Year parade has been cancelled due to a lack of preparation time. But he promised other festivities, such as giant-themed installations, to ring in the Year of the Rabbit. Overseas, at least 64 people have been killed in a plane crash in Nepal. Footage filmed by a nearby resident showed the plane hovering low before spinning to its left. Plumes of black smoke billowed from the crash site in the city of Pokhara, a gateway town to the Himalayas. 68 passengers and 4 crew were on board the Yeti Airlines flight from capital Kathmandu. The casualties included 15 foreign nationals and 2 infants. A search for survivors is still underway. Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal, who rushed to the airport after the crash, urged security personnel and the public to help with the rescue efforts. Russia has launched a fresh wave of missile strikes on Ukraine, and while most were shot down, some managed to inflict devastating damage. One missile landed on apartment blocks in the eastern city of Dnipro, killing at least 14 civilians. Sachin Katvi reports.
The missile strike completely leveled the 9-story apartment block while damaging 2 adjacent buildings. Smoke billowed from the rubble, making initial rescue efforts difficult. Residents who survived the attack stared in disbelief at the extent of the damage. Rescue workers toiled through the night hoping to locate survivors, but more often than not, they could only recover dead bodies. Civilians joined in the effort, helping emergency crews clear the debris to make way for fire engines to go through. Without heavy machinery, firefighters had to manually remove concrete slabs to pull out survivors trapped under the rubble. Tower cranes eventually arrived so rescuers could get to people trapped on the higher floors of nearby buildings. By daybreak, the devastation was much more obvious, but there was no time to waste for rescue workers and volunteers. Approximately 1,700 residents were in the building when the missile struck. At least 14 perished and dozens of others injured, including 14 children. Another 30 are still unaccounted for. The attacks, which happened on the day when Ukrainians celebrate the Orthodox New Year, has forced President Volodymyr Zelensky to ask his Western partners for more weapons. But Moscow warned that more aid to Ukraine would lead to an intensified Russian offensive, resulting in more civilian casualties. Still, one thing was for sure. Instead of forcing Ukrainians into submission, the latest missile strikes reignited their rage at Moscow, with this woman describing the perpetrators as dogs. Sachin Katvi, HKIBC.
More than 80,000 people took to the streets of Israeli capital of Tel Aviv to oppose a proposed legislation which will enable lawmakers to overrule Supreme Court verdicts with a simple majority in parliament.
Some people argue that after 50 years of occupation, Israel anyway is not a democracy. I can tell you that once you keep 2 million people under occupation, you cannot keep Israel inside democracy. Now, all Israelis are going to suffer from the same problems. So we need to go out and fight for democracy. And we will tell them, this is the end. We're not going to let you destroy the Israeli democracy.
The newly formed right-wing coalition, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, wants to overhaul the judiciary. If the legislation becomes law, it would give politicians more influence in appointing judges and make it easier for the government to rule in favor of Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. Critics say the proposal would trample judicial independence and marginalize minorities. Netanyahu could also personally benefit by using the law to scrap his ongoing corruption trial. On to the weather now. Mainly cloudy and dry with sunny intervals and a cold morning to kick off the day. Temperatures will range between 11 and 15 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Thanks for watching. Good night.